Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. No, I'm not saying it with a sense of relief. I'm actually saying it with a sense of nostalgia. It's our final episode. It's episode 20 of 20. And in today's episode, we'll be looking at spiritual healing. And this is, as I said, our final episode on Medicine of the Prophet, your guide to healthy living. I'm your host, Farooq Hussain. And in this particular episode, we'll be looking at spiritual healing and the interplay between a healthy soul and physical health. So some of the questions we raise and hope to answer include: how might spiritual healing be not only healing for the soul, but also for body illnesses? And why might spiritual healing be relevant to treating both physical illnesses as well as illnesses of the soul? And why should seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's assistance be our first option when we become ill, given that everything is ultimately in Allah's control? And so to discuss this topic with me, I'm very pleased to be joined in the studio with Professor Bhika and Dr. Maulana Ashraf Dokrat. And in this, our first segment, we'll be looking at spiritual healing, its definition within the context of prophetic medicine. Professor Bhika, let me draw you in, sir, and ask, what do we mean by spiritual healing?
Jazakallah khair. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think it's best just to define spiritual healing. After doing a fair amount of research, I came up with this definition, which I think is appropriate. Spiritual healing can be defined as the use of spiritual practices such as prayer, meditation, or rituals for the purpose of maintaining and improving health, but without the use of medicine or other medical procedures. So, as the definition highlights, it's more the use of prayer, zikr, etc., without medication, etc. Having said that, we're also fully aware, and there's so much research on the value of spiritual healing. In that, it has been there with people from cancer, with people from many chronic and even fatal diseases after spiritual healing, and the outcome was, alhamdulillah, good. Also, we are also aware that spiritual healing is a practice that was in all cultures and creeds. And in fact, African traditional healing is well known for their spiritual healing. The difference between spiritual healing in other cultures and in Islam is that spiritual healing from an Islamic perspective is also linked to empowerment of the individual. Because a lot of the other spiritual healing use other external healers. But in Islam, we are able to be in control to a certain extent with a direct contact that we have with us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ourselves have got the ability to perform or to be part or to use spiritual healing for our own health, welfare, and in the treatment of disease.
Alhamdulillah. Maulana Ashraf Dokrat, let me draw you in. So I've noticed that those people who have a deep and abiding trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even no matter how ill they are with cancer or any other illness, you ask them how they are, they say, Alhamdulillah. And so let me ask you then to inform us on what is spiritual healing from a Tib al-Nabawi perspective. And is it only healing for the soul? Because some people say that when you have these illnesses, that it is actually an illness of mercy, that it helps you and prepares you on your journey to the next world.
Yes, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think that Allama Suyuti rahmatullahi has defined this connection between the body and the soul, and that spiritual healing caters for both these very, very aptly. He states that spiritual healing is something that looks after both the body and the soul. He states that doing the prayer, for example, he's referring here to Salah, contains all that is excellent in both this world and the next. In worship, a person will experience apprehension, fear, hope, uncertainty, and love. When his attention turns to the next life, it will strengthen his faculties, delight his heart, and it will drive out disease. A pious person once saw a group of people, and he was surprised to note that these people were enjoying very good health, despite the fact that they were quite an idle bunch, a rather idle bunch. And he says that I made some inquiries as to why this was so. And it turned out that they were regular in their prayer, especially the tahajjud, the night prayer. So he says, so finally I decided and I came to this conclusion that salah is a very effective cure for colds and catarrh and keeps one in good health. So we can see that as far as Islam is concerned, spiritual healing is both in one sense preventative and at the same time curative.
May our merciful Allah grant us all the comforts and the blessings of the year after, inshallah. Ameen. Still to come, after the ad break, we'll be looking at the question of the practice of spiritual healing from both Tib medicine as well as prophetic medicine. We'll continue, folks, this discussion after the break, and we'll be with you soon. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're with ITV's program, Medicine of the Prophet, your guide to healthy living. I'm your host, Farooq Hussain, and with me in the studio is Professor Rashid Bhika and Dr. Maulana Ashraf Dokrat. And we're discussing, just to remind you, the whole question on spiritual healing and how it is practiced from the perspective of both Tib as well as prophetic medicine. I want to draw in Professor Rashid Bhika now and ask Prof. Prof, can you tell us from a Tib perspective, sir, how does spiritual healing take effect?
Farooq, in the previous episode, we spoke about physis, or the inherent wisdom of the body to heal itself. And obviously, we also mentioned and we highlighted that this self-healing mechanism, or the self-healing aspect within the human being, is controlled directly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is inborn, it is ingrained. Spiritual healing or any element that is going to motivate or is going to instill or inspire or trigger this self-healing ability. So bottom line is, spiritual healing actually activates your body's natural mechanisms through the will of Allah Ta'ala. So by practicing zikr, etc., the soul and the spirit and everything linked to the self-healing with Allah's mercy is activated. And this is how, from the Tib point of view, this is how it actually implements itself.
Wonderful. Now I'd like to draw in Maulana Ashraf Dokrat and ask from an Islamic perspective, what can you say is necessary for spiritual healing to actually take effect?
Yes, as Muslims, we know that we believe that if we are searching for spiritual healing, then healing comes from the Quran and adopting a life in accordance with the teachings of the Quran. Allah Ta'ala speaks of the Quran in the Quran as this message of the Quran as being a maw'idha, a admonition from your and a good advice from your Lord, and also وَشِفَاءٌ لِمَا فِي الصُّدُورِ, as a healing for what is in the hearts. In other words, the hearts, the diseases of ignorance, the diseases of doubt, all of these things are cured by the Quran Kareem. However, this advice and this healing is conditional, because a prerequisite to achieve the guidance of the Quran Kareem is taqwa. Right in the beginning of the Quran, Allah Ta'ala calls this book, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَاب, this book of the Quran is هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That this book is such a book that there is no doubt in its teachings. However, it remains a guidance for those people who have taqwa. So the adoption of taqwa is a prerequisite then to be able to take guidance from the Quran Kareem, and the hidayah and guidance is only given to those people who have taqwa. And therefore it becomes so important for us that together with taking the means, we need to adopt a life of taqwa. Suyuti rahmatullahi says, let me prescribe for your tonic. And you make this tonic, and this is the ingredients of this tonic. He says, take in this mixture, add a bit of eating only that is halal, and to this tonic add being scrupulous as far as your obedience is concerned. Add the ingredients of avoiding all that is makruh, and restraining and avoiding following your negative thoughts. Add also to this formula keeping one's inner feelings in control and ruling oneself with wisdom, and keeping humility as part of your life. And then add an ingredient of asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for protection against evil and from protection against desire. And then he says you have this perfect tonic that can cure all ailments and all diseases. So I think he puts it in a very, very graphic type of way and prescribes really nothing else besides taqwa. This tonic, therefore, is the tonic of taqwa.
Wonderful. What a wonderful gourmet recipe that is. And no wonder your face lit up. And it's a great metaphor for life and living as well. Now, we do have a short clip, folks, to expand on that idea. And the external footage has Sheikh Ahmed Lambada sharing his insights on the impact of ruqyah in spiritual healing.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Spiritual healing, or ruqyah, as is mentioned in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It entails recitations from the Holy Quran as well as from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which have come down to the Muslims as traditional, ruqyah traditional. Ruqyah has a specific purpose in our lives. It is, as is mentioned in the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَنُنَزِّلُ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ مَا هُوَ شِفَاءٌ وَرَحْمَةٌ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And also he mentioned in the Holy Quran, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. In the remembrance of Allah, you will find calmness of heart and quality of life. In other words, you shall lead a happy life because of having a sound health. This means that the remembrance of Allah and the recitation of the various ayats which help find relief from various illnesses are necessary to be recited. They bring that satisfaction within the heart so that we really enjoy our spiritual health as well as our physical health. And physical health is very, very important for us as long as we are alive in this world. We have been sent down to perform certain duties, and those duties can be performed best if we have the best of health. Therefore, ruqyah is very, very important for a Muslim in order that he may be spiritually and physically healthy.
Sheikh Ahmed Lambada, a veritable treasure trove of ideas and knowledge and insight. Moving on then, we'll be going for an ad break now, but still to come in the next segment, we'll be looking at guidelines on accessing and seeking spiritual healing for both the body and the soul. Do stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. You're watching ITV's Medicine of the Prophet, your guide to healthy living. I'm your host, Farooq Hussain, and with me in the studio is Professor Rashid Bhika and Dr. Maulana Ashraf Dokrat. Remember now, in this segment, our focus is on guidelines on accessing and seeking spiritual healing for both the body and the soul. Let me draw in Professor Rashid Bhika quickly and just ask, Prof, what spiritual healing advice can you give with respect to maintaining a healthy soul?
Farooq, as Ashraf mentioned earlier, the prerequisite is obviously taqwa. You've got to have faith in Allah Ta'ala, absolute faith. And there's a lovely saying which just sort of endorses all of this. You know, and if you talk about spiritual healing for the soul, the saying goes, tranquility of the heart or the soul is obtained through recognition of his creator, his names, attributes, and prefer what he approves of, loves, and avoids what Allah Ta'ala forbids and dislikes. If you have taqwa, you will live a life according to what Allah Ta'ala has prescribed for us. And ultimately, if we do this, then spiritual healing, the door to spiritual healing is open.
Wonderful. Maulana Ashraf Docrat, what spiritual advice can you give in treating illness conditions?
Yes, there are, we know, many du'as, and we see them written very often. We should make an attempt to learn these. Let us read them constantly for a few days, and we will notice that after a few days we are able to memorize these. Something that we all know is Surah Fatiha. Surah Fatiha is an important cure for ailments. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that Surah Fatiha is a cure for all maladies. And so we see, for example, in the life of sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a companion once treated somebody who was suffering from epilepsy with Surah Fatiha. He came back from this journey, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam approved of what he had done. And Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam on this occasion said that Surah Fatiha is the mother of the Quran and is a cure for every disease. And all of us have Surah Fatiha. We can all treat ourselves. Let us recite Surah Fatiha 7 times, 21 times, blow it onto ourselves, blow it onto our children, recite it into water, drink this water. All of these are something that we can do ourselves, and we can take empowerment we can empower ourselves to do. So while we're doing this, we should also ponder over the message of Surah Fatiha. That the curative power that the Surah Fatiha has is because of its message, that it is able to cure at the same time belief, it is able to bring peace of mind to us, and it is able to strengthen our faith.
Wonderful. Now, I'm going to have to tie up the loose ends now in terms of this program. I just want to say advisedly, folks, it is not by chance that when we started this program, we had Professor Bhika and Maulana Ashraf Docrat. And it's fitting that we end this whole series of episodes with both Professor Bhika and Maulana Ashraf Docrat. So I'm going to ask Maulana Ashraf Docrat for some closing comments on the episode and the benefits that he believed it might send out to all of us, the viewers in particular, and to those of us who've been part of this. For myself, I must say advisedly, it's been a huge learning curve, conceptually, as well as how to sit as the host for a program.
No, I think we all thankful that we were part of this program and able to contribute in some way. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept what has been done, and whatever good has been done is from Allah, and if we have in any way had any shortcomings, then this is from ourselves. And so as Muslims, I believe that we have to be pleased and rejoice in the fact that Islam has catered for our every need. Islam has looked after our physical, our spiritual, and even in this last 2 episodes we've seen how sometimes there's a meeting point between what is physical and what is spiritual. Let us now practice on what we have learned. The viewers will agree that the onus is now upon us. Over these 20 episodes, we have managed to equip ourselves with a great deal of information. And what is required from us now is to practice. The benefit and the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in the amal, is in the practice. Let us adopt the sunnah in our lives, because a life in accordance with the sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a life that brings goodness, and it's a life that has in it remedies that are built in, and it is a life that will bring us benefit in this world and in the everlasting life of the akhirah.
Wonderful. Maulana Ashraf Docrat, I can see that the teacher in you is still very strong, and that the academic in you is also calling out to people to not just theorize about things, but to in fact implement and to put into practice. And now it's my great pleasure to call on Professor Rashid Bhika. And for the benefit of the viewers, I need to say advisedly that it's very pleasing to see that a fellow Muslim has really gone out of his way to make sure that the study of Tibb al-Nabawi and medicine of the Prophet has in fact now received accreditation in our country, and that is still deepening the respectability of the subject of Tibb al-Nabawi. And so it's now my pleasure to call on Professor Rashid Bhika to offer a few closing comments. Any thoughts that you might have? Are you as sentimental as I am at this point in time?
Yes, I'm afraid I am. And having said that at the outset, Farooq, let me just thank you for hosting the program. You know, it's been you've done a great job.
Well, thank you.
Secondly, on a personal note, you know, as you mentioned, I've been involved in tib medicine for a long time. And, you know, over the years, I've read so many books. I've read the books of Sayuti and Josiah. And only during the process of preparing for all the episodes did I realize the depth and the wisdom behind every hadith of our Prophet ﷺ. And, you know, it makes it's almost such a humbling experience for me that all that information was there, and we as Muslims, and I personally, did not see the full value of it. And so my closing sort of remarks would be, you know, that whatever we have brought forward, please, and as Ashraf rightfully mentioned, it's all a question of implementing it. And the information that we have here is simple to understand. And this is a question that I've asked many people that I met. How was it easy to understand or not? And most of the people said it is. And remember, Islam is, I mean, Allah Ta'ala has given us this deen, you know, the Quran and the Hadith, for all time, for all people. So it's not that difficult to understand. And more so, it's even easy to implement. So please, folks, people out there, you know, if you can, everything that you may have learned, inshallah, with Allah's will, try and implement it. And I have no doubt that your health, maintenance, staying healthy will be achieved, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. Well, Prof, thank you for this opportunity to having served as your host. I must tell you, as they say in the classics, I'm just your host at the post. All the work, folks, has been done by Professor Bhika, and my life has been such a breeze. The research, the preparatory work, the behind-the-scenes work has really been done by a host of other people, including Professor Bhika. The ITV team, I really want to thank them, and as the credits roll up, you will see all their names. It's too many and too numerous to mention. But to all my guests, you know, who've been part of this program, including Maulana Dr. Ashraf Dokrat, Dr. Joy Saville, Dr. John Glynn, and Dr. Mujib Hussain, I really want to thank them all specifically. And to my two scholars here in the studio, thank you for really practicing the first revelation, which is read or reflect or proclaim, you know, in the name of Allah. And I want to really practice, you know, one request from our merciful Allah, that one should give gifts. And so I have for you a gift which is just the surahs from the Quran, which I'll give to you in a little while. And it's to thank you both for your hard work and your scholarly approach to life and living. I really appreciate that. Rather a society that is learned and learning than a society that's ignorant. And in an increasingly plural and polarized world, it's wonderful to know that this program helps us to celebrate our roots as Muslims, and also that we have the wings to fly in a multicultural society. Now, in sum, folks, as we say, salams to all of you, spiritual healing is relevant to both physical illnesses as well as illnesses of the soul. In today's program, then, the closing program, we seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's assistance when we become ill, and that should be our first option. For after all, everything is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's control. And this, folks, has indeed been the final episode of Medicine of the Prophet, your guide to healthy living. And I now have great pleasure in wishing you all well. Your health is your wealth. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be with every single one of you and grant all of you shifa. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.